I say, friends. I am Vitaly Portnikov, the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, having presented all 20 points of that peace plan. I will negotiate at once for help. In the United States, I, obviously, will become a platform for the latest discussions in 2026. Why for 20 points of the peace plan? The point is the highest reaffirmation of the sovereignty of Ukraine. All participants please confirm that Ukraine is a sovereign power. Of course, this is a declarative point, because, uninvited to all the statements of the Russian Kryvnikiv. Because Ukraine has vzagali shtuknym utvoreniem. The legal point of view of the Russian Federation has not vyslovlювала sumniv u sovereignty of Ukraine. Ayla at once is sim namagalasia to delimit the sea sovereignty, say, the fence will enter Ukraine too. Such organizations, as the Pivotlantic Union. I think we have so much to worry about, we will be grateful for the Spryania Spolishena staff. No declaration cannot be scavenged by the obvious reality because of the results. Vini, Ukraine will be transformed into a state. The power of the is delimited by sovereignty. I yakraz somu, it is difficult to zapobigati at the onset of the period of the so-called peace plan. Another point will please about the non-aggression of the Russian Ukraine for the Pidtrim. Imki Dovgostrokovogo the world will be created mechanisminatoring for the control of the line Zitnenya. For the prefamiliar cosmic bodiless monitoring, Zabezpieczenia early powiadomienia about Poroshenia that usuvania conflation. Ail me fine with you rozumimo, show. If so, please me about the non-attack, be ready to get ready, I'm ready to destroy, I'm happy, I'm ready to be on the yak. So call the Ukrainian provocateurs. Yaki can I study at? A view for a new life, I potom in order to make an agreement about non-aggression, small b want be yak sends, it is a good reason. I will be sanctioned for ruining the z please, I naskilki z sanctions. But it zupinyati Russian Federation. Vrahovuyuchi obsyag economicnik sanctions, yak at once is sim not zavas he rosi pradov zuvati vinu. One real sanction can but the fate of an ally in Vien z Roziu, at times Poroshenia not please. About non-aggression. I practical upavneni show such item. Then, the new world's pleasure is not paradbeketsia. Tom show third paragraph please, about that talking Volodymyr Zelenskyy, see Nadin Garant Bezpika. Al show so Nadini Garanti Bezpeki, Tim Bilsh you such as no musvidi, demi zu navit not know, chipratsu piat statya nato. That will not explain, perhaps, to the very fact that there are no real guarantees without security. There is simply no way around the very cold of Ukraine, so that Russia will fight a new attack on our land at once, and it will be very easy. The coming of the rock will be completed. Kiu vino. The fourth point is the number of the armed forces of Ukraine on the Vni 800,000 Viskovoslužbovtsiv. C is practical that figure. Yaka at once I'm in the Ukrainian army. I'm going to need 30 significant financial resources. The contribution of Yoshu Rozbudov, Izberizhenia Zbrojna forces of Ukraine. And here, of course, we demand a reason, because we will be able to use the robot of the Ukrainian suspension. Because in such a situation Ukraine, I am in the same situation of the sovereign budget, I will be Pratsuvati himself on the army. I on the Viskovo-Promyslovi complex, I so is called the social Ukrainian power, to pray to the distant past. Well, if there is an additional help for the Allies, then without the additional help of the Allies, they can impose all the Zusul of the Ukrainian suspension, but they are not just led for the Utribuvanya. Ale strong and kind Ozbrono army, I Razbudovi Viskovo-Promyslovogo complex on the river. I allowed by Rosie to fight with them on the way to our land. P.C. guarantee Bezpika for Logikoyu close to the status. P. Otto, therefore, Rosarum H. details. Yaksho, Rosieska Federatia's Novu attack on Ukraine, Krim Skurdanovano v. Skovo Vidpovidi. Budit Vidnovlini versus global sanctions proti Rosieskoy Federaci. Another point, Yak is not wonderful, is worth Ukraine. If Ukraine invades the territory of Russia abo without provocation, it will drive through the territory of Russia. The guarantees will be imposed by the undivided. Yaksho Rozia Vidkriv gone across Ukraine, guarantees Vikayatsia to any other point, that pid point Piatogo. Dodam Tilki, show Vazlivo Buds Rozumidi, show take the territory of Russia. See Persh I Negalovnish. And what if Russia invades its territory at the moment, if you get into the Russian-Ukrainian Vinu? The Constitution of the Russian Federation of Ukraine absolutely describes the territory of Russia in a different way. Those who Ukraine has its own territory, Russia also has a part of the Vlasnik subregions of the Federation. Separate shadows, compensation Polishany stats for Naden Garant. But the President of Ukraine on their Sigodny Suster z journalistami Pidkrisliv show C. Point Pribrami. Bo the Ukrainian side is not Rozumi, show may be on Uvazi pid such compensations. Well, obviously, Yakis Groshi, Yaki, Yak Zavdi, for his little star. Bizov Zarobidi, the president of the newly acquired state Donald Trump, at once, and his business is exact. I have one point of agreement. Not Skasovud Vostoronik Bezbakovi households of Ukraine by the great powers. Maybe, there is a move about your pleasure, about the guarantee of security, and factually about the Ukrainian border. As if they were written in an hour, by the Russian-Ukrainian way, and maybe about Ax Novi please, Yaki Mazitzi will reveal, at Maybutnomu. Item Shasti. Russia may legally close the policy of non-aggression against Ukraine, through the necessary laws, and ratification procedures. Zakrama, Galosuvanyam Uderzhavny Dumi Roziaskoi Federacji, si Propozitia Spoluchenik Statev, a Yakmi Rozumo. Rozia can absolutely calmly seize Robidi, to the one Rozia Nikoli ni on whom not attacking for the Vlasno logic. And Tilki Vidpavade. On aggression? So, to impose Yaksho Russia legally to close the policy of non-aggression against Ukraine. C. Do not let the saboteurs go to the new Ukrainian region, Ipid Kresluvati. Show reek of the Roziaskamev population of the Zhorstok. Bandarivtsiv, Yaki Rozgulyalis Pislia moreover, Yak Pripinilas Roziasko Ukrainska Vina. Edge Sama for such a logic, we fell under the 2000th of the 11th Rosi. Russia did not realize that it was attacking our country. Navit at a time, every hour of a large-scale life, without kints I without edge, at Rosi Pradovzuyut talking about Yakas. Without a special operation. I those of Ozatime Moskvi Navit for a dozen legally formalized Rishan at the State Duma of the Russian Federation. To honor the new special operation on the Zakist, so the title of Spivichiznikiv at Byaki Inchi Krani, Okrim Ukraine, Samo. At 1z Crane Balti. Vidpovidi na si Pitanya, Zvicheno, Nime. Si Bud Shvij Zaspakievi point, I allow Everpatesum to think, show Nablishimi rocks of Russia. Do not pokn z them Zvichenu abo Zhiridnu Vinu. I would not slacken on my own missy, Navit Yaksho Durzhavna Duma, Bud Ukveluvati Pevni Rishenya one voice. Point 8. To finish the important, Paraprosu Siomi, Yak Pavyazani is joining the European Union. For Ukraine, there will be prescriptions for joining the European Union, at the values of our Timchasovi priority access to the European rink. At this time, the specific terms of membership will, of course, be the subject of specific negotiations. And I will demand confirmation from the side of the European Union. It is possible to tell the truth on the idea that Ukraine may join the European Union at 2020-year-old companies. You perfectly understand, because Ukraine does not go through the whole real negotiation process with the European Union. Does not close all the clusters, does not bring, because we are ready to comply with the standards of the European Union. Do not reject the one-voice Pidtrim. All the member powers, about the current accession to the European Union of the MOVI are not allowed. At a time, Ukraine can't impose any help with the procedure of crossing the border to join the European Union. Because the procedure should be blocked by the Ugric order. I demo according to the rules of procedure. I allow the technical Peremovini. The legal point of Zoro will not mean. SOMI can be closed if there is one Z point paramoven about joining the European Union. With such a rank, it is required to be divined on the situation realistically, and to be saved, less at the 20s. And more at the 30s. On the 21st century, Ukraine has a unique chance to come to the European Union. I see with the fact that there will be a Viregulovani legal territorial Patanya Yak in the Ukraine itself. So I in the Ukrainian Republic of Moldova, the same as the European Union. Nime vidpovidi na Patanya, Yak Ukraine I Moldova become members of the European Union. The Union is not regulated by the territorial provisions, the European people are still being helped. Because the process will be so long, because at the moment, if it is really possible for me to join the European Union, The Chinese people will also be such a chia in the highest rank of Virishan. Ales Namo, show territorial power for the post-Rudenskogo, Proster Mazit. It is possible to become a 10-year-old with such a rank to block the real European integration of Ukraine and Moldova. The point of 8 May beauty weather package Rozvitku for Ukraine, which will be the design of the Okremy Investitsini please. About Maybutnya, Protsvitanya. At this point, it is said about the establishment of the Rovitka Foundation for Investment in the Shvidko's Rostoyach sphere. Spivpraku Spoluchenik staffs of the American companies in Ukraine. The updated modernization of the exploitation of the gas infrastructure, the future. Onovlinia Postrazdalik territory, Mist I Zhitlivik Kvartal. Rozvitek infrastructure, Vidobotok Korisnikopolin, I Naturny Resursiv. Ped preparation Svitovim Bank's special package finansuvanya, Svorenia Vizikarivnovoy Robokoi Grupi. Ta Priznachenia Administrator Coordinator Protsvitanya 4. The implementation of the plan is renewed. Well, all this Rozumili Punkti, I stink will require, Yaksho. To go into the Yakis real prospects, to complete the Russian-Ukrainian way, institutionalizatsi, I investitsi groshi. And investitsini groshi at his church, Z Bitilki at times, Yaksho the participants of the new year will be in the spring. So that the Russian proti of Ukraine will not be touched by Nablishimi rocks, I will not be afraid of them. Investitsi Shlyakam, rocket bombardment, I Prilativ Bezpilotnikiv. Well, it's a good thing, for the sake of the whole thing, that the Ukrainian Hromadyany Buliv Pavneni. Show through the Rik Inchi Vina not to be born. I Bazali be Zelishisia on the territory, Yak Sprimatametsia them Yak territory Zagros. So show here vid Garanti Bezpeki, really will be Zelishadi. The whole day I pace of the inquisitives to Ukraine, that Rozvitek of the land at Pislivoni rocks at times. So the rocks will not become the front ones. Divyati point Pavyuzani is funds vidnovlinya ekonomiki, reconstruction Zrinovani territory. Meta of humanitarian needs. Meta 800 milliardiv dolariv. Ale, Zvicheno, Znovu the same key investitsi Pavyuzani, Yak Ivij Kazov, is guarantees Bespika. We have received the staff of the European powers, may form the capital fund, and guarantee the order for $200 million. For investment in Ukraine, for the purpose of military education, there will be a set of financial instruments. And a power supply of chi instruments will be made by the people of the Institute. Ukraine declares a declaration of the highest Svitova standards for the highest direct inozemna investitsiya. Okremo fixuyatsiya the right of Ukraine to compensations Bitkiv, Ailmi fine Rozumo. Show Russian Federation will categorically resist to the point of the plan, I will be happy to be a compensation, Spitkiv Ukraine for that. Aggression, Yaka was bullied by the remaining rocks. One point is more declarative. Ukraine has to confirm the status of a nuclear-free power in accordance with the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. Dvanitsy 80.C. For which there is no compromise, I stand in the operation of the Laukas. The Americans will be able to pass the New World Rozpadil control, with the fact that the staff will be the head manager of the Spilny business. Livnomirin, Naskilki I Rozumiu, Mova I'd pro Spolukini Shtati, Ukraine I Roziu. And Ukraine proponuja stvoriti, Spiln pidpremstvo mis Ukraine, that Spoluchanimi states. 50-50, to half of the Virobleno energy I'd Ukraine, and the other half we got to the states. We gave a Visnichatamet Yai Rozpadil, now it's wonderful, the same move I'd about the power of the atomic power plant. On Yuridikna of well Ukrainsky territor. All at once, the electric power plant is controlled by Russia. Absolutely nezuzumilo, chomu rozia may otrimuvati elektroenergia for Spryanya Spoluchenik Stefiv, I half energy vidavati Ukraini. Yaksho any Spoluchenik Stefiv, ani Ukraini nema real nemozlivosti primusiti rosi vdz. For the territory of the constipated ass. The 13th point, Ukraine is that Russia may have been sanctified by the programs, it is better to try to be reasonable and tolerant. To pertidute Rosism for the benefit of Ukraine. This is how the application of the norms of the European Union should be prescribed for the sake of religious tolerance of the Zakist move. The very point of May Z of the point of the dawn of Moscow is to allow the Russian Federation to take on the role of the Russian movement, at the function of the Ukrainian power I Suspilstvo, and also to formalize the Zhorst status of the Russian Orthodox Church on Ukrainian land Yak Snaryadyev Plivu, Yak Dopamos Yuma. Turn Ukraine at the Russian sphere into a tide. And here, by chance, it is possible to beauty, duj bogato, such pidvodny stones, as to allow Russia to destabilize the situation in Ukraine, even for the addition of the 13th point, and then bring the door For a new invasion of Ukraine by the method of the residual znishenia of the power of the divination of the land. If there is not a bulo voted at the State Duma of the Russian Federation, then it will be said that Ukraine is not tolerant. It is not important to call so. Rozieskamev populated on the streets of the Ukrainian mist. Don't shave those, Shoma. That's why the Russian Mova, like they were making storytellers there. I know all the demagogy. I can, but I was experimented with in order to please the middle of the United States of America. Well, I'm the 11th point, because there are no real problems with households. The Russian Federation may have its own way. Dnipro, Mykolaiv, Sumy, Kharkiv regions for the sake of a variety of official services. At Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporizhzhia, Kherson Oblasts, Yak Proponuya Ukraine, there will be a line of Rozmizuvanya Visk. On the date of the concluded pleas, IC will be de facto recognized by Linia Zitnenya. Another variant, Yak, ISO Rozumiu, Bilsh Zrozumili for Americans. I will discuss the potency of the economic zone on the territory of the Donbass. For this purpose, Ukraine is ready to carry out the hardening. The referendum on the controlled territories. It is absolutely not reasonable for me to hold a referendum on the territory, because I can have a potency. In the national economic zone, because Ukraine is officially not going to be affected by the fact that the Donetsk region is not a part of the territory. Varto Bulo conduct Tilki in the situation, Yaksho Ukraina Virishit Vilukiti Donetsk. Chibiak Inshu region, Z warehouse of its constitution, Viznati that fact, show see now subbed Russian Federation. Nagalosuvanya, Yak Proponuya President of Ukraine. It will be put on the basis of the US agreement, and not on the point itself about the Vilna economic zone. Yaksho Rishenya will be praised by the Ms. Ukraine, the United States and Russia, will be laid down around the corner. Yaka Visnikatime, the status of a special economic zone. For the sake of Uzgodenya Maybutna territorial households, as the Russian Federation, so I Ukraine. Goiter Yazutsia not Zminyuvati Chi households Sili. The offensive point please, Yak mi Rozumo, a little warty. That all the Kroyazanya Russian Federation can be booty with her Sprostovani Vij for a kilka misyatsev pislia. Moreover, Yak Ugoda Bud Pidpisana, I toti Vona Bud Sprimatisia, Lish Yak Timchasov, Pripanenya Vognu. For the accumulation of the Russian Federation new reserves for the residuals Nishenya Ukraine. Shistinyati point of Russia is not Parishkajatime Ukraine Vikaristavudi Dnipro that Chorn sea for Siloi Komert Sinoi Dialnosti. It will be laid down around the Morska Ugoda that Ugoda about access, Yaka Ohoplyuvatime freedom of the shiplast that Pervizan. If so, the demilitarization of the Kinbergskoy Kosi is carried out. The 11th point of Humanitarny Komitet for Virishenya Vidpavidny Pitin. Usik Viskapolanik, including is Zasujanimi Rozieskoyu Potenchernoyu system in 2013 Rosi. Will be obmanina for the principle of 6 on 6. Usik civil zatramanik ta Zaruknikiv, including children ta Politichnik Vyaznev, will be turned. Will VZD come in for Virishenya problems and suffering victims Vini? There's no particular stink here. Well, the 18th point. Ukraine may hold a Vybori Yakomoga, Shvidj Pislia Pidpisanya please. Sparse President's Viber. I am glad to have the opportunity to vote for mechanismism, so I can hold it until I know the boundary of the military camp. And for the parliamentary ones that are small. 19th point. Kia Ugoda Bud legally Obavyazgavoyu. Vikananya Bud Kontroluania, Garantovati Rada of the world, of course, Dehead Bud Donald Trump. Zosh for the sake of the world have gas, yak mis namo, so I do not supperzala to chogodnichnu day. I, before the speech, Historia ZC. In order to please the world peacefully, and to please the world, you can have a good illustration of the fact that your share checks the Russian-Ukrainian for the sake of justice. Ukraine, Europe, NATO, Russia, and the United States will be a part of the whole mechanism. Well, I'm going to be in front of the sanctions for the damage. In addition, since we have to wait for the weather to please us, we will not secretly be able to remember everything. Well, this is the last remaining point of the whole plan. Well, I am the president of Ukraine, I am saddened. Because the 24th Brest will be on the right side of the Russian side of the same project, for the sake of the fact that Rozmova will be born. Amerikantsiv z Rozianami Todi Pidkresliv Zelensky. Me Budemo Rozumidi are coming crocs that can be a clock frame for quiet chi inchi rishin. Me ready to zustrichi z spoluchanimi staffs on the Livni Literative for Virishenya sensational food. This is the speech, I am a theoretical Pitanya, I demand to speak in Russian. Letteriv. Well, yak bakimo. Okrim Z please, Okremi please, try to complete the Vini. Mova I'd about the bagatory side to please, Yako will be led by his guarantors without protection from Ukraine, the USA, and the European lands. I'm going to please the two-sided, Povyazon z garancjami vid spoluchenik stafiv. I will be a Vieski Dodatok. I will be talking about a detailed plan of mechanism of bezpeka that reactivated at the time of the new aggression of the Russian Federation. The very reason may be that I will take care of the strong Ukrainian state, the strong Ukrainian army with a strong partner, with tools to be careful for the world with the help of that particular one. Well, firm, in principle, see taki nabir documentiv. Ale now vinica pitanya, yak zimi documents, ion yak minds, spiratsia whether zuvadicia Russian side. The yak mean, zaraz say about those, show tak rozumna situat. Rozion am thou kazuki, parechino. Ale, you can be scorestatist by this fact, because it is your peace treaty. In order to prolong the delay for an hour for the Russian-Ukrainian week, weather conditions are good for the singing points. Singing points are not good for the Russian Federation. I also ask for those who stink to demand something. Negotiated. I discuss Mazit Prodolzia is minimi in pod dug rocky. Budemo spotovaticia, show misyatsi, ale vigliade shoroki. That's why it's a pevny point, that you can have a beauty uzgozani at your church with Russians and Americans. You can have a beauty that is not acceptable for Ukraine and our Europeans. The ally is a whole new round of Bagatomasiakni Visnazivi discussions, if Visnazivi discussions about peace please also Povyazani. I Visnazivimi Viskimi Diami, I Pradovshenium Bombarduvanye, Ukraine Rosiskim Zagarbnikum. That's why, of course, it's possible to speak, because I'm on the side of the President of the Russian Federation. Putina Skilki Zavgodno, Ayla Naspravdi match on the side of the quiet, whom Putina's Nishu skin day. In the whole process, there is no real way to feed on the firebrand. And how will the President of Russia delay the peace process? Until the end of the day, when the President's staff was received. The axis of the yak power Varto Bulo Bishukati much answer, if me su obgoverili so titles Murni plan of President Trump. I'm sorry, friends. Sign up for the whole channel, sign up for the new one, sign up for my social network, on the channel at Patreon. Bamia Koshtiv Donatel, I want to be able to develop a new resource. Complain about the sponsorship function of YouTube itself. Help the world to you, High Shasted.